Welcome back into another episode of George in the Jungle, presented by Remington Tavern. Remington Tavern can be found, as always, at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. You can check them out on Instagram at RemyTav Cincy. That's REMITAV Cincy with a Y, or follow them on Facebook. And with that, George, we are underway for another episode of what the hell is going on with Cincinnati sports.
Boy, I don't know. I think I feel like Cincinnati sports is performing right now. Do I look bad? I got my ass kicked by the grandkids today, so I had to watch them for a couple hours on my own. And of course, right when I'm getting to the deadline where I'm almost off duty, speaking of duty, one of them had to fill a diaper, so that was great. That was just, I mean, literally, I was about out the door, and that happened. So, yeah,
that's usually the way it goes.
Cincinnati teams.
I've got 2 under 3, so, I mean, that's usually the way that it goes.
Yeah.
You're trying to leave.
You're used to that, though. You're used to it. I'm not. I've probably changed 4 to 5 dirty dipes like that in the last, close to 40 years, 35 years. Hey, I did well, though.
Well, good on you.
I did well.
I mean, I know
what I found in that diaper is about what I saw Saturday or Sunday at Fifth Third Arena.
Well, we were just talking before we started the show about Groundhog Day. It feels like we're in Groundhog Day. We're just all these teams just.
Aaron, I went to that game Sunday expecting, okay, it's going to be different. Why do I expect that? I don't know. It's just like it can't continue. Can it? And it did.
Sure enough.
It's really tough to put your finger. I'm sitting there saying, you could see how things were going at the end of that first half. And it's like, they're probably cooked. It's going the way that we've seen these other games go. It felt like the way the other games go, other than they were making free throws like crazy, 7 for 7 in the first half. But then early in the second half, I mean, there were so many missed shots and point blank shots and you know, sometimes there's missed layups that are contested and it's okay. You know, you're like, all right, you still should make them, but at least it was a couple of them weren't even contested and they were missed. And I don't know what's going on. I have never seen, I can't say I have seen an in-season collapse where the bottom has completely fallen out of a team and has no answers like I've seen this one. I mean, I've been going back through my mind of UC teams where this may have happened to them, and it probably has, but I can't remember it being this dramatic where all the hope and life is sucked out of everyone, you know, the fans, the play, everyone. It just seems like the bottom has fallen out. You know, you go back and you think of that 2012 playoff series the Reds had with the Giants, the bottom fell out there. But that, you know, that's a 1 week thing. This has been a month or longer now. Funk, if you're allowed to say that. It has been over a month. You know, the Bengals and their collapse against the Steelers in the playoff game. But that was a short period of time. It wasn't like you had all this time to fix things or change things or try something. And it's just the same thing keeps happening over and over and over. And I really, you know, I would have liked to see Rayvon get some more minutes on Sunday because I thought when he got in there early and had his quick early shift, he produced. I know there was a change in the starting lineup, but then when you look at the where the minutes went, I don't know how much that really had to do with anything. If you know, it obviously this didn't work well, but you know, I got to go down the minutes here. But the same guys pretty much got the minutes for the most part, or what they usually get. I mean, Jizzle may have been a little short of what he was doing, what he usually gets. But I don't know, man. I just I wish I had some answers, and um, I really wish the guys that get paid to fix these things had the answers, and that's where you really get concerned about where they're headed and where they are.
Well, you elevated Day to the starting lineup, and Dan started from the bench. He came in about 4 minutes into the game or so, where coach usually makes his first substitutions anyway for reasons I'll never be able to explain. But I don't know. Jizzle, yeah, you mentioned he had less minutes. He only had 18 minutes. Generally, this season he's been, I think, about 25 plus.
Right.
Aziz also under 20 minutes. He had 18 as well. That's where you get, Rayvon with the 12, Josh Reed with the 19. Betsy, he's been hovering around that 10-minute mark or so. But you didn't have CJ Frederick. You still don't have Connor Hickman. So there was still some extra minutes there, which is where Josh Reed and Rayvon Griffith end up with those minutes combining for 31 minutes between the two of them. I don't know. I've not ever in my entire life seen a team like this. And you mentioned them being in a funk. I think it's too late to call it a funk at this point. It's been going on.
You're right.
This is who we are. This isn't a funk. This is simply who we are at this point.
And correct me if I'm wrong on this. Maybe I am, but this is the feeling I get, and this is what you get from the non-conference part of the schedule, where this team, when they play someone that they have more talent than, they beat them like a drum. But when that talent level gets about even or a little, you're a little less, it's the opposite. They pretty much get their ass kicked. And I don't understand how that happens. I don't get, you know what I'm saying? Like if they play somebody they're supposed to beat before the Big 12 started, obviously there's been several games we thought they should have won in this, but I don't get it. I don't know what it is. There's something very, very wrong. Either something happened inside that locker room, which I would think by now we would have heard if there was some kind of catastrophic thing that happened. I don't know what it is, but something's gone very, very wrong. And I just, sometimes you see it coming. I didn't see it coming with this bunch. There was no point during the non-conference. Now, you saw them play Villanova and lose, and that raised a red flag. You're like, holy crap. But Villanova's big man had a great game. There were several excuses you could make, first decent team on the road, all this stuff. And then the Xavier game, they got away with murder, shooting the ball the way they did and getting out of there with a win. So you still kind of felt, okay, they didn't play very well against them, but they got the win. You feel okay. You think, all right, everything's going to be all right. And it just fell apart, and I can't explain it.
Well, it starts and ends with this team has no hustle, no go for it, no backbone. Truthfully, I mean, when they're up against the wall, it seems that they cower. It seems that they shrink in the moment. It seems that they are afraid of playing 40 minutes. They're allergic to playing 40 minutes. I don't know when the last time was that we saw this team play. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if they have. The entire season played 40 minutes, even when they were beating people like a drum, to use your phrase. I don't recall them ever playing like from bell to bell the entire game. They got to, put their foot on the gas and then kind of dial it back because they were up so far in a lot of the non-conference. And
right. You kind of get that's kind of like just human nature where that happens in those blowout. But yeah, you're right. In these competitive games, down the stretch, and for better or worse, they kind of did that some last year too. And we saw it in that NIT game at Indiana State where they're right there. I know they had a lot of bad stuff happen, but I did not like what I saw in the last couple minutes of that game last year. And that was one game, but it just feels like that's what we're getting now too in these close games down the stretch. It just wilts. It's any critical juncture of the game, it seems like they come up short. And you can even say, and I know, isn't it odd that the football team had the same issue, like closing out before the end of the first half? And it feels like the basketball team does the same damn thing.
George,
Like the end of that first half Sunday was a disaster.
What's odd is the fact that Wes Miller is making Scott Satterfield look like a good hire right now.
Well, yeah, I'm giving Satterfield more time, and he's got a little more rope. But who would have thought that? It's football season. I know. When that came to a close, that if you would have told me we would be sitting here in 2 to 3 months talking about who's got the brighter future between those two, I wouldn't have thought it was the football coach.
Yeah, I truthfully, I don't know whose seat it. I don't expect, truthfully, I don't expect this Bearcats basketball team to win more than 4 conference games at this point. I think 4 would be a blessing.
So you're saying 2 the rest of the way?
If that.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that, but then I can't believe the team I've seen over the past month. I mean, it's just,
if you finish out and duplicate what you've done, you're pacing that anyway to finish 4-16, sitting at 2-8. So if you finish at 4-16, who's got the hotter seat next season if Scott doesn't make a bowl game? I don't know who has the hotter seat.
I still think he may get. I know people don't want to hear it, but I think he's probably in for at least, this coming season and then maybe another. Next year's it for Wes. If it doesn't happen this offseason, the next year's it if something doesn't change in a hurry. And I'm sure he realizes that. All you have to do is look around and see what happens to basketball coaches at schools like UC that don't make the NCAA tournament.
That would be 5 seasons that he hadn't made it, and
right.
You couple that with the seasons with John and then with Mick. Like, the drought has been a long time at this point for a basketball school, quote unquote.
Right, which makes it feel like the 80s all over again, which was just awful. Like you went into those seasons. Now, we didn't do that this year and really didn't last year, knowing that you weren't going to make the tournament. And at least you made the NIT. Nobody wants to make the NIT, but it beats not having that kind of resume to get in, because at least you had a winning season. This is hopeless. And right now, it feels like there's no end in sight, but that's really not reality. We'll see, how they close this thing out. I don't have a lot of hope. We'll see what unfolds in the offseason. We'll see what moves the administration makes. If they are aggressive and want to change this thing and pull the plug on whether it's the AD or the coach or everybody, I don't know. It just depends on how antsy they are and how much money they can swallow, because I'm not sure how they're going to be able to swallow that money.
Darren says this team quitting reminds him of how the football team quit the end of Sat's first year. Do you put any?
Yeah, I mean, it does. Yeah, that one, yes, and that team kind of fell apart too, and there was a lot of, but it was weird because you kind of heard about that dissension and kind of saw it, and then you saw like certain players doing really dumb things and getting dumb penalties on the field. And there's some comparison there, but I just feel like this is more shocking, right?
Yeah, Wes is in year 4, and this more.
Yeah,
the team on paper was supposed to be at least first weekend, if not second weekend of the tournament.
And Tuberville's last year, he fielded a team that fell apart, and Nippert was ugly, and there were boos. Yep. Thank God I didn't go to that last. I think was it Memphis they played at Nippert, and it was raining, and it was a Friday night, so I had to work. So thankfully I didn't have to go. But my God, I got the gist of what went on there. Yeah, so it definitely. Yeah, I brought that up last week with somebody.
Yeah,
Tony Yates, great
Allen
man, but
compares it
those
to
were
Tony
some
Yates.
dark years. And here's the thing about Tony's team and players. Immediately when he left, Hugs comes in. That was a completely different team with a lot of the same players. So coaching matters. Coaching matters a lot, and it can make a big difference. So I'll be interested to see what the administration wants to swallow financially, what they want to do. I never thought in a million years back in November or December, I'd be sitting here in early February speculating that West may not make it another year. But this has been a debacle. And when you have a debacle, something's got to happen.
Well, I've talked till I'm blue in the face about West Virginia at this point, but Cincinnati plays UCF tomorrow, a team averaging almost 80 points, 79.6 points per game. I don't know that I've seen anything that this defense has shown me over the course of the last 4 or 5 games now to show that you're going to slow down this UCF offense that has been putting up 90 points in some cases.
Right. West Virginia had 40 at the half the other day.
Keyshawn Hall had a game where he had 40 points.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess the Sellers kid will be out again, right? He's been missing a lot of time. They got 4 conference wins, beat Texas Tech. That might be the best team they've beaten. Hung with Kansas, although Kansas has been kind of weird this year. But yeah, I don't feel good about this. I don't know why I would. I mean, I did. I really thought I was going to see something a little different when I walked in Sunday. And I'm just sitting there early in the second half, just like, why? Why did I think it would be different? So we'll see tomorrow night. I'm with you. I don't think they're going to be able to slow them down much based on what we've seen and what they've done defensively here lately. I don't know. We'll see what he does with starting lineup, rotation, that kind of thing. But by the way, hanging with Houston, and that's very admirable. I mean, did you see that game Saturday with Houston? That was a great game with Texas Tech.
No, I didn't get to watch that one.
Toppin got run from the game early. A horrible call. Horrible call. So then the coach gets run, and they hung in there for double overtime, right?
Yep.
I think I was drinking during that game, but I think it was double overtime.
I had a daddy-daughter dance I was in attendance at. So
well, good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
But I have not seen anything to say that this team is going to be able to keep up offensively with a team like UCF. I don't think they're going to be able to slow UCF down defensively. Right. I don't feel good about this game. Cincinnati right now, I believe if you bet the under in Cincinnati games, I think the stat right now is 18-3 on the season.
Crazy.
Right now, this game stands at 145.5 for tomorrow. And UCF favored by 3.5. 3.5 seems like a gift. Yep. If I'm a UCF fan, I'm betting the house on that. I don't know.
I'm with you. I'm totally. I get it. I understand. And until we see some evidence that something clicks with these guys, and I don't know. I mean, I don't that will to rebound, that desire to sit down and guard, all that stuff. You just don't flip that switch. I mean, it's just hard to do. That's gotta that's a trait that you really, really, really have to desire to have. And I haven't seen it. I have not seen it.
You've got Darius Johnson averaging 14.8 for UCF. You've got Jordan Ivy Curry averaging 14.5. You've got Keyshawn Hall averaging 18.1. And you've got Mustafa Thiam averaging 9.6. Cincinnati's leading scorer last game against West Virginia had 10.
Yeah.
No other Bearcats had double digits. You got 3 dudes averaging well into the double digits and 1 dude right there at 9.6. I would be amazed, shocked and amazed if Cincinnati goes to Orlando and wins this game.
Yeah, I'm with you, and hopefully my CBS Sports app on the television does not fire up, so I don't have to watch this game because it's on CBS Sports Network again, but no Pete Gillen this time.
Oh,
I know.
that guy. He
Yeah.
looked old as dirt.
But I think the thing I got to do, and I hate to do this, and I think I've done this once in my life. I am going to have to just start betting the opponent. So you either win, although my luck, UC will lose by 2, and I'll lose the bet in the game. But I just have to start doing that. I did that one time. UC was kind of in a little bit of a lull under Huggins, and they were playing Oregon, and it was like at Madison Square or somewhere. And same night UC played North Texas in that bowl game down in New Orleans. I bet UC in that, lost that bet, turn around, say, screw it, I'll double the bet and take Oregon because they're going to kill the Bearcats basketball team tonight. UC couldn't miss a shot to save their – this game was over at halftime. Tony Bobbitt couldn't miss anything. And I'm just like, I'm glad they won, and I love seeing them play well, but it's like I have the worst timing when it comes to throwing money down. So here's what I will do. I will bet Central Florida tomorrow night and just see if it works.
Who on this team could just catch on fire and not miss? Who's even capable right now of that?
Nobody looks capable right now. Before the season, obviously, they had a couple options like that anyway. I mean, you would think between CMOS and Jizzle, there would be, some scoring punch from the outside and the ability to drive a little bit. And my God, they drive and they either get blocked, miss the layup, or both.
5 of 19 on layups last game. 5 of 19.
Aaron, a couple of them were wide open like the layup line. Now, there were players around, but they were I had an angle on one. I'm like, okay, this has got to be a make. Freaking total miss. It's mind-boggling. There's plenty going on up here with these guys too. I mean, I don't know what it is, but college basketball teams can't be this bad shooting, open shots.
It's unbelievable. I'll cry if we end up finding out in like 2 or 3 years that there was a point shaving scandal going on that we had no idea about or something of that nature. But my goodness, figure it out.
It's funny. I mean, you said that, but I was definitely grinding Sunday. Like, what has happened? What's going on? I'm like, there is no way. If it's that there, I mean, if I'm an investigative body, I got to look at him. How can you possibly be this crappy scoring the basketball? How can you be? But I don't think that's it. But that thought crossed my mind. I'm like, boy, if it is, these guys they are throwing it all. It's not just like missing a free throw here and there. This is like throwing it all in the tank. I mean, you're not taking any chances of covering.
Maybe that's what's so weird about 18-3 on the under. Just saying.
It could be.
I don't know.
No sense.
That's
the only thing.
Complete reckless speculation on my part. I do want to say that much.
Mine too. Yes, it's totally reckless, and there's absolutely zero evidence that anything's to it.
Yes.
But when you try to explain this kind of a collapse and this kind of performance, it's not
fair game.
It's not unreasonable for that to cross your mind. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely unreal. I don't want to get any deeper in those weeds.
No.
All of a sudden, Chad will pop in and tell us that we need to stop what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we don't want to go down that pipe, but you think about what possibly could have happened, and it could be anything, but it just feels like something has gone off the rails here. And I don't know if it's as simple as, the players get away with too much. I don't know. But it's something. Something has poisoned this well. And you can get into that whole roster construction and how this team's built, and where does the inside scoring come from. That was a problem last year, but the other pieces seemed to work better last year. But this year, again, if you dump that ball down low, it needs to come back out because nothing good's happening down there with the basketball right now.
Nope. So in any case, we'll see what happens. You got Cincinnati at UCF tomorrow, 7:00 p.m. As you said on CBS Sports Network. Nothing will make me feel good until they start. You have to start making shots. You have to start making shots.
Yeah, and it's such a. You look at the offense, like, are they getting enough open shots? And maybe not, but however, I sit there and see a lot of open shots missed. And we're talking not just threes, but 10-footers, 8-footers, layups. It's maddening. And that's where sometimes I feel bad for capping on the coach about it. But then you back up and it's like it is his responsibility. And he built this roster and sometimes you got to take what you can get. You can't just go out and cherry pick every great recruit and bring them in. A few programs maybe have that luxury, but unfortunately Cincinnati's not one of them right now. So, they've got to be very perceptive in who they bring in and what they add to the mix you already have. And I'm not that kind of a genius. And, we're going to find out real quick if he gets a chance, if Wes Miller can pull that off. But the evidence suggests it's going to be a tall task, if you know what I mean.
Plenty of blame to go around. You got 15 players you can point fingers at right now. You got 5 coaches you can point fingers at right now. There's plenty of blame to go around for everybody. It's not on any one player. It's not on any one coach.
The board of trustees blame, the president blame. John Brannon gets blamed. The blame is everywhere. That's for sure.
Ugh.
The fans blame everyone but fans, right?
Well, sure.
Well, that's not our fans' fault, though. We got no control over anything.
No, especially on social media where we complain about everything.
We can withhold money and not go to the games, but damn it, I love going to games. So, it does make you wonder, like, ultimately, is all this angst worth it where you throw out money and your fandom and all this? And it's like, to me, ultimately it is. There's nothing like the buzz of a game. And even when it's going bad, I was real interested to see the introductions the other day. I got there just in time. And I knew Wes was going to hear it when they said his name. And I would say it was probably 60-40 cheers to boos. And it was interesting. It sounded like the higher up you went, the more boos there were, which was pretty interesting.
Ugh.
Natives are restless.
Can't blame them.
I can't either. I'm one of them. I'm restless.
Well, on a much lighter note,
please.
Pitchers and catchers report.
Yes. The Reds.
For your Cincinnati Reds, the pitchers and catchers report a week from yesterday. Of course, there were some new moves that were made since we last talked. The Austin Hayes trade had been reported, hadn't completely gone through. It's now gone through. He passed his physical. He, of course, had the sickness, the illness that hurt him last season. Where what was it, a kidney infection?
Yeah, he had some kind of kidney deal. Yes, and I just saw a comment. I've never seen a weak Bearcat team. That's true. I haven't either, really, for a long time. Back to the 80s. Back to the Reds. I just saw that comment. It just struck me. Yeah, Hayes had that. He had some injury issues, and the big thing was a kidney thing. He didn't really feel right all year, so hopefully he has a
Right.
bounce back. And the Reds got him. Man, that's a decent price, really, for a guy who was an all-star
All
2 years.
star.
Yeah, yeah, they've been
You also get
pretty prudent in what they've done. I mean, they haven't added the big guy we all wanted, a bopper, for a corner outfield spot or even a corner infield spot for that matter. But given their budget and all that stuff, and I know people hate hearing about that all the time, but it's a factor. They've done okay.
Yeah, you also pick up left-handed pitcher Taylor Rogers from the Giants in exchange for Braxton Roxby, a minor league pitcher. You also traded Casey, I don't even know how you pronounce this name, Legumina, to the Mariners. They've been a pretty constant trade partner for the Reds here over the course of the last 5 years or so.
Yeah.
As they had to make room for the Hayes signing. So here you are now getting ready to go into camp with what looks to be a pretty set roster. Even Krall has alluded to it as much, despite the grumblings of potentially a Pete Alonso move last week. I don't know that I put anything into that. But in any case, you've added Lux, you've added Hayes, you've added Singer at that pitch in the pitching rotation. You've added Rogers, you've added Trevino as your backup catcher over Malley, who's gone now. McLean comes back from injury, hopefully. He's been in the batting cages anyway. Looks like he's got his swing going. Christian Encarnacion Strand should be back without injury. Heimer Candelario should be back without injury. It's an interesting team. And of course, you cap it all off with Tito.
Right, which was the biggest acquisition by far. And we'll
Sure.
see what kind of magic he brings and what kind of message he gives them. And I'm sure we're going to hear a lot about that next week, early in spring training. You have that first big meeting with the whole squad on the day of that first full squad workout, and I'm sure we'll get some thoughts from Tito that day and his message to the team, and we'll see what he does. I feel good about him being at the top, and I feel like he can make a difference, and the health can make a difference. We'll see how this infield shakes down. He's got options at least, when you got Candelario and Marte and CES, and then Spencer Steer's always hanging around, and he's a guy you can plug around. And I read where he may be DHing a lot this year, and that's fine with me too. But Tito will figure all that out. But and they add Wade Miley. Minor league contract, no real risk to the Reds. The earliest he'll be ready, though, I mean, he's got a lot of miles on him. The good news is, though, he's not like a high, stress pitcher when it comes to health. It's not like he's herky jerking around, and
no, he's
players love him because he works so damn fast.
He doesn't have the velocity. He's more of a Greg Maddux type guy where he's going to kill you just dancing around the strike zone.
But he's not supposed to be ready till mid-May, and it's it's what? I think the most he can make is $5 million or something. So I can see him taking a flyer on him because once, when they added Singer and they added Tito was talking about adding these starting pitchers, and he's like, anytime you think you have enough, you're crazy. So I figured they would probably make another, sign or two of bringing these guys in and kind of have the old cattle call like they used to have back in the 90s and early 2000s, where you never even knew. Like, you would be coming into spring training with those teams and probably not even have a good idea who was going to start opening day yet. That's how crazy their starting pitching was back then. You just had a bunch of guys they threw in the camp, and whoever emerged. And that's how you ended up with Joey Hamilton starting opening day one time. Jimmy Haynes started at one time. It was like you didn't have a guy like, oh, it could be Hunter Green or it could be that, you didn't have that. It's like it was like the old just open tryout almost what they would do for starting pitching. So I like the fact that they value it as well. They should. Anyone in the major league should, because pitching's a hell of a big part of this. But at least over the years, they have morphed into valuing this starting pitcher a little more than what they did. And, in defense of the organization and not the ownership, back in those days, they were kind of on a tight budget too after they got Ken Griffey Jr. and, they re-upped Larkin. It was like they didn't have money for anything. They should have, but they just didn't use it.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see what the rotation even looks like come opening day, because
there's a good one.
the
tuna boat man, tuna boat captain.
You got to figure as far as the starting lineup the starting rotation. You're probably looking at Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Nick Martinez. I think has to be in there given his 21 million plus.
Right, and he kind of earned it last year. I mean, he pitched very well for
them. Brady Singer and Kyle Abbott.
That's not a bad rotation.
And you're still leaving out Rhett Lauder, who showed himself to be pretty damn good down the stretch.
He looked really good
after the August call-ups, or September call-ups rather. I don't know.
And if he keeps doing that, he'll be in that rotation when they break camp. I don't know. We'll see. It's a good problem to have. It really is. But you know how it is. Somebody will have a sore elbow in spring training.
Nick Lodolo, inevitably.
It'll probably be that leg again.
Man.
I know. Talk about a lingering issue.
I really wish that I had seen something anywhere that said that they replaced the training staff entirely in its complete entirety going into this year. But plenty to be excited about, though, with pitchers and catchers reporting. That means we're one step closer to spring ball starting, which means we're one step closer to opening day. And opening day, of course, being just something to forget about this Cincinnati Bearcats men's basketball team.
Yeah, I know. I've had so many people tell me over the past probably 4 or 5 days how, God, I'm already looking forward to the Reds. And then they follow that up with, and then by June, I'll probably be looking forward to the Bengals. That's kind of what we do here in this town.
Yep. Speaking of spring, maybe worth mentioning just for a moment, but there was a commitment yesterday, George, from an Elder kid.
Oh, yeah, how about that? That's great.
Derek, I want to say it's Uran, or Uran. I doubt it's pronounced urine.
I don't know if it's urine, but maybe.
But he is a 3-star outside linebacker. They're projecting him to be a linebacker here. But good to see a hometown kid. It's been a little while. People have been banging on the drum. Fans, anyway, have been banging on the drum for Cincinnati to bring another hometown kid. And here you have one from Elder, which Elder generally, I guess you've had some guys transferring back in from Elder.
Right.
But Elder generally doesn't commit to Cincinnati.
Yeah, it seemed that way for a while. Back in the older days, they got their share of players from there, and they've been a pretty good big part of some success UC has had too. So it's good to see them dip back in, and hopefully the staff is starting to make some inroads, because I feel like the best success that the Bearcats have had on the football field has been fueled in part by several local players, and not necessarily just Cincinnati, but certainly greater Cincinnati, and kids from Northern Kentucky and Gino Gaduli, guys like that who played for them. It just seems like when and that was kind of the Fickle mandate when he came in, and he was such a part of this area for a long time in football, recruiting for Ohio State, and had all those relationships in place, and was very, very trusted by the local high school coaches, and that's where this staff needs to get. You don't have to have it there. It doesn't mean, that they take all these kids from somewhere else and they're not going to have a good team. But historically, that kind of a foundation has really, really helped UC football. So hopefully they get back into it a little more. But I'm excited. Everything I read about this young man, he projects really, really well. Like just the intangible stuff too that you hear about him. And I should have called his head coach and gotten a little more intel, but what I've gathered is all positive.
Well, we will certainly look forward to seeing him make his way to Cincinnati. But spring ball for the football team right around the corner, and looking forward to talking that once that's here. But speaking of football, there was a Pro Bowl this weekend. I'm all the way out on the Pro Bowl. I could not care less about the Pro Bowl, but Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase there. Jamar Chase, I believe, had 3 touchdowns in the flag football game that they play now.
Yes.
Which, whatever.
So you're not going to watch this flag football, men's and women's flag football league that the commissioner was floating?
No,
me either. I kept thinking about it. I'm like, okay, let me think about this. And, maybe I'll like it later. No, I don't like it. I just can't see how that's going to do anything.
If they play flag football at the Olympics, George, I'm out. I'm not watching flag football.
Which would you rather watch, the flag football or the what did they have? The break dancing.
Why do I have to waste my time on either? I'd rather go work in the yard.
Good.
I'll go mow.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, I will sleep.
But Joe's there, and he
talking to a guy who watches a lot of golf, and nobody understands that either. Do you ever watch golf?
When it's a big event on like the last day, maybe I'll watch the last day of something. That's about it. But Joe's there, and of course he gets asked about bringing all the guys back, because that's the biggest question that's going to be asked all offseason until you have an answer one way or the other. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson, what are the Bengals going to do? Joe Burrow continues to insist that this team is capable of bringing all 3 back in the fold. It's going to take a little creativity.
I would say a lot of creativity. I mean, I've been looking at this stuff, and I don't know how they're going to do it. I would love to see them be able to do it. But with that projected cap, and then if I'm right, Burrow's cap hit is like $46 million or somewhere in that neighborhood.
Something stupid
coming up this season. And it's going to be roughly a $270 million cap. So he's not quite 20% of that, but he's a hefty amount. And then if you throw in, say, a new deal for Hendrickson, new deal for Higgins, new deal for Chase, and they will probably structure it so the cap hit isn't so dramatic this year, but at some point it's going to catch up to them some. And if it's this year, you're talking about half your cap in 4 guys.
Unless you extend
an NFL season that way.
Unless you extend Joe as well, right? And then get that
cap
hit.
You could fiddle with that number. And maybe that's part of what's going on here. Yeah, you could fiddle with that. And that's, a lot of quarterbacks have done that over the years to keep guys. And hopefully, he would be open to doing that. It sure sounds like he would be.
Or maybe Joe takes a pay cut and actually has a business that the Browns can invest in, much like Robert Kraft did with Tom Brady, where it's not money that's under the table per se, but it's also not. It's not above board, but whatever. Figure it out.
Yeah, that might work. That might do it. But yeah, they got a lot of, as Jethro Bodine would say, a lot of ciphering to do here in this offseason and try to figure all this stuff out, because I'm looking at these numbers. So Chase is probably going to make 35, right?
If not 40.
Okay. So then you're looking at Higgins is going to make close to 30, probably not 30. At least I don't think he will here. I don't think if he does, then they're really up against it.
I've
And
seen
then
people projecting him as high as 32. I don't know that you get
I don't
much
know
higher
that he
than
can
that,
get that
but
here. Though. I just don't know. I mean, because now you're talking about 2 wide receivers, each over 30, over 30 million. I mean, you got to field a team. Like, and then, and then Hendrickson, and I don't know. My prediction would be Higgins probably still ends up somehow being the odd man out, but I don't know. We'll see.
I think I'll be surprised if they re-sign, truthfully, 2 of those 3.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to figure out, and we'll see if they can. And then on top of that, what if like Hendrickson wins AP Defensive Player of the Year, Chase wins AP Offensive Player of the Year, and then Joe's probably going to win that comeback player. I would think he should. I mean, when you're coming back and you're throwing wrist and you've got those ligaments.
Yeah.
Ligaments are a big freaking deal, and
Yeah.
you have surgery on them, and it's not that easy to recover, even if it's a little thing. I mean, they nag, and he talked about during the season, like some days it would feel good, then the next day it's like, God, it's just kind of like something doesn't feel quite all the way back with the strength or whatever. It's so he should win that comeback player of the year. But man, those guys win those awards, and then is the price even higher for? I don't think it is, but certainly their agents are going to throw that in their face. I mean, if Hendrickson's the defensive player of the year, you know what they're going to be looking for.
You also got Jamar Chase, All-Pro. You've got Trey Hendrickson, All-Pro. Joe Burrow, not All-Pro, but he should have been an All-Pro, should have been MVP, in my opinion. But I digress.
Boy, he had that kind of year. It's just that bad start. Someone told me today.
Wins are a quarterback stat, apparently, so whatever.
Well, that's, Terry Bradshaw had 4 Super Bowl victories, and that's how he ended up in the Hall of Fame, I believe.
Well, yes.
Right. Those are the wins that count.
There was no other statistic that made sense for him to be in the Hall of Fame.
But if you go and look at his numbers and stuff, and then you're like, he's in, Kenny Anderson in, it's just like Anderson totally should be in. I don't know. We'll see what they can do with all of this, but it's going to be another interesting offseason for the Bengals. In fact, we may find out a lot here in the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, I think there'll be plenty of evidence. If you can't re-sign T. Higgins, Cooper Kupp's available. Just saying.
Well, right, but that's going to take a trade.
I know.
And then how much money you're going to have to pay him. So then you're giving up assets to get a guy that you got to sign for, not what he's going to make, but
he's also injury prone at this point in time. I'd rather have a guy who doesn't have the injury history.
Absolutely.
If you're going to bring in somebody to replace T. Higgins, I don't care if he's a tier down. He can't have the injury history that T had. But anyway.
And I wonder with all these wide receivers too, like it just seems like anymore because it's, the college game is such a passing game and everything. I mean, are you better off drafting a guy and not paying? And I'm not saying not paying Chase, but Chase and Higgins. I mean, I don't know.
With all the holes you have on defense, I don't know that you can draft. You'd have to draft somebody in the first 3 rounds, and I don't know that you have the draft capital right now to do that unless you make a trade back to get more draft capital. So,
right. Well, you could certainly trade Hendrickson and get draft capital. You could trade, right?
Duke Tobin's got plenty of things to think about here over the course of the next few weeks, and that's why he makes the big bucks.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I did not. I mean, can you imagine having to figure all that out, and then you're dealing with, oh man, not enough money in the world for me to deal with those headaches.
Well, speaking of not enough money in the world, Lucho Acosta for FCC. FC Cincinnati, is he coming back? Is he going to transfer out? What's going on with that?
Everyone seems like he's transferring out, going to Argentina, right?
That's what it seems. But he did come back. He brought his family back.
Yeah, I don't know how all that works, and that it seems crazy to me, but I get the sense, and maybe I'm wrong, but I get the sense that maybe FC Cincinnati's kind of ready to move on too at this point after what's gone on here the past couple months.
Well, and looking at the downward spiral this team had at the end of last season, is it time to rebuild? Because they were a mess, really, the last after that big break.
Speaking of collapses, yeah, they did. They weren't the same team, and that was really weird. So maybe they are looking for changes for what they think will be the better. But I do still. I mean, Chris Albright and Noonan, the coach and the GM. I still love how those guys operate.
Yeah, Pat Noonan's he's been irate. He's been irate the last couple of weeks, and good on him. He should be.
Right. Oh, that's what I like. Like, he doesn't hold back.
No.
Like that first practice where those guys were missing that first day.
Yeah.
He genuinely PO'd. And he did not hide it. And I love that.
Yeah. You have to be that kind of coach with the rules that MLS has and the way that you can I mean, truthfully, Lucho Acosta's kind of arranging his own transfer out. Like, he's the one who's the players have a ton of power in that sport, and we'll see what happens, where the chips fall. I'm curious to see what this team looks like when the MLS kicks off.
Yeah, I mean, they still have good talent, and we'll see. I think they'll have another pretty good year.
You got anything for local high school basketball?
The X with a big win over LaSalle on Friday night, so X still leads at GCL South. What else has happened? Winton Woods dropped its suffered its second loss of the season to Indy Cathedral, home of Ted Karras. Let's see what else. The tournament begins in less than 2 weeks, the 17th.
What about Wyoming?
Wyoming's still undefeated and still kicking ass in Division 4. Aiken's 18-0 in Division 3. And then Chad's boys,
Lloyd blew out Dixie.
So they are now like top 20 in RPI. Did you know that? That's in the state.
I did.
Them and Cooper, I think, are the two in the top 20 from Northern Kentucky. And then Comcast, somebody else is in there.
So Lloyd's athletic director, his daughter is on Kelsey's AAU volleyball team. And I've known Bill since we were like in elementary school. So he was talking up that Dixie win.
That's a good win. Good for them.
Did you know Mike Code is an assistant at Dixie now?
Oh, is that right? No.
Yeah.
Damn.
So I was at Kevin Bundy's funeral last week, and Mike was there. And his dad, you remember his dad?
Yes.
His dad was the coach at Lloyd forever.
Right.
So he's like, I'm not talking about the Juggernauts tonight. They put it on us last night.
Oh, that's funny. That's what makes that high school stuff so cool, though. It's like, I mean, you may have been a star for this school, then you're at the biggest rival coaching against them, and it's funny. It's funny. I do miss getting out and about to all those practices and stuff like I did when I was working, but I still try to go to games here and there. And maybe I'll start going to more now that the tournament's cranking up, because obviously I'm not going to have to worry about postseason with my other team.
Yeah. Well, outside of that, George, you got anything else?
No. I'm just going to hopefully get over this cold once and for all. And I think this weather going back and forth, this weather whiplash is having a bad effect on me. Maybe I need to snowbird it. Go down to Florida for a couple months.
There's certainly some more whiplash coming up in the next week. So
I know.
Hooray.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's going to wrap it up here for George in the Jungle. Thanks to everybody who tuned in with us live and joined in on the chat. Thanks, as always, to Remington Tavern. You can find them at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. Check them out on Instagram at RemyTavCincy or follow them on Facebook. But for George Vogel, I'm Aaron Smith. We'll see you next week, Tuesday, 9 o'clock p.m. to discuss all of your Cincinnati sports.
Thank you, Aaron.